Welcome to the Building PA Podcast, the voice of the construction industry throughout Pennsylvania. Here are your co-hosts, Chris Martin and John O'Brien.
Hello, and welcome to the Building PA Podcast. I am co-host John O'Brien from the Keystone Contractors Association, and it's a field trip day. We are in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And by we, I mean podcast co-host Chris Martin and I are here live in Harrisburg at Novinger's shop. So Chris, welcome.
John, thanks for having me.
You bet.
I know you put this all together, so this is fantastic. This has been a great road trip.
Yes.
We've been on a couple this summer. We've been on a couple last summer. We're going to be on more this summer. It's just been crazy. So you get to hear the antics of John and I on the Building PA podcast. And everyone, my name is Chris Martin, and I am with Atlas Marketing. And really, really excited to be here because we're talking about some stuff that I'm learning so much about, John. Like, this is pretty cool. Like, the history and the whole idea behind this. But now we're talking to the guy that apparently really is the one that knows it all and is the one that's going to push this over. And
They said he's the cleanup hitter. He's the cleanup. Any fact that was not delivered yet today, as we walked the shop and we met at the offices and we talked about 50 years of panel construction and an exterior panel. This is the guy. This is it.
No pressure.
Drum roll, please. Here we go, folks. Without further ado, Steve Powers, Vice President of Sales, Novingers.
Yeah.
Oh, what?
I am definitely being sent up.
Is it that obvious? Come on.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You bet. So who is Steve? You want to introduce yourself?
Been here about 40 years. Started loading trucks and then come in estimating. I've done a little stint as VP of sales, back to VP of construction, now back to VP of sales. So a little bit of everything.
Okay.
A little bit of everything.
So you're definitely a cleanup hitter.
Yeah. And do it all. Go back out in the shop, go to work tomorrow if we need to. So we're good.
That's good. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Over the time that you have been here at Novinger, what have you seen as the progression of prefabrication?
Probably somewhat of a quirk of construction to a necessity to keep things moving. Some of the first prefabricated projects were office buildings, two-story kind of exterior ones in when the big office boom happened in the 80s. And I think it was something that they looked after, well, let's do this and let's put it on the building. And it worked. To now it's becoming a financial driven necessity just to get the job done quicker. They may actually pay a little more for it, for the product itself. If they're good business people and look at the overall shortening of the schedule, we always try to tell the owners you'll have people leasing out spaces sooner. So if you do a complete study of it financially, it gets you inside fitting out quicker, especially in Pennsylvania with the cold winter months to work inside. It just pushes the project so much farther ahead as far as schedule.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing I've seen. It's gone from something that was just kind of like of an interesting idea how to do something to almost prefabrication. They're doing bathroom pods, they're doing mechanical units, they're doing all kinds of stuff now. It's the way the market's going as far as getting, backers are driving the bus, want it done quicker.
Yeah.
Owners want to get their loan paid off quicker. That's what's driving the bus, is the financial aspect of getting the prefab done.
So today has been an awesome day, amazing day. We're going to show some pictures and videos on the email and on the website and all that good stuff. But as we walk the shop, we see healthcare projects, we see office project, DOT project. As the VP of sales, are you calling up DOTs? Are you meet with all these healthcare projects? Or
No, you get, as the name goes out there in the panel, the prefabrication market comes on board, we're trying to get people to call us early in the process. And we call it a design assist process. Jim may have mentioned that. But before an owner spends his money and has an architect draw the building a way that can't be panelized and then turns around and says, we want to panelize the building, well, then I have to spend more money to redraw the project. So we're getting called in earlier from healthcare and universities and even some material manufacturers who the architect's talking about wanting their product on a building. They'll say, well, contact Novingers about prefabrication before you draw your drawings. There's a design assist process that for years they got for free. We're charging for that now because it is an inordinate amount of time in meetings to get all this worked on the outside of a building as far as air vapor barriers, NFPA 285 fire code ratings, all this stuff that comes into play that they want on the outside of the building, coordinate with window guys, electricians, roofers, just all kinds of need to be done ahead of time. So you'll find the whole market has gone towards prefabricated exterior. And one of the things is that some of the other trades aren't catching up with it yet. You're not going to prefabricate a roof. So they'll say, we'll just worry about it when you get there. No, we need to have this pocket design for this parapet now. So roofers are like, they're getting into it, they're buying into it because something has to be there. We're making here in the shop and putting in the building that they have to work to. So the whole process is coming around, but we're trying to get more to the owners and even the design concept people before they draw the building.
Yeah.
So it's an early stage concept. It's interesting.
And to what you just said too, with like getting the roofers on board and other elements of the project, I would think that would actually be beneficial to them because that means that if they're part of the team, they are automatically, they got the job, right? So there's an advantage there.
Yeah.
And once you have that buy-in, you now can start to really push this project forward.
Yes. And decisions have to be made so much farther in advance to what they're used to making them. That freaks a lot of people out.
Yeah.
Your brick selection for a thin brick, you need to make it a year in advance because that's the lead time on the products. Metal studs, sheeting, air vapor barriers, pretty readily available. ACM can be long lead time. There's some products that are long lead time, and some of the architects like to sit there and wait, and you have to push it, and you work backwards in the whole schedule. When do you need your first panel on site? How many do we need to have stockpiled before we start hanging panels? How far back do we need to start production? How far back do we need to do shop drawings before you can start production? So it can be 6 to 8 months before you need panels on a job site. You need to start doing shop drawings.
Yeah.
And that's one of the hardest things with people. Everything's pushed so fast nowadays, but we need this information cast in stone to start making your exterior finished panels.
Right. To that point, I remember I was at some conference somewhere, and an HVAC guy was saying how he needed 90 months lead time on a specific size unit or whatever it was, and very similar process. So how does that impact a project that you get that comes across your desk today with a very, very quick launch for a project?
You mean as far as how we push them to get the information done?
Yeah, like how do you steer that project to ultimately get to the point of, well, wait a second, here's what we need to, how do you help people understand the process, I guess, is my question.
Well, when you have a room full, and again, I'm not sure who's listening to the podcast, but you have a room full of architects, owners, general contractors. You have a contract with the general contractor, so you be careful what you talk about money because the owner's there and it's got to run it through. So you got to be careful what you say.
Fair. That's fair.
But when you go to push it, it's always about schedule. Mm-hmm. When do you need this job? So just so everybody's listening, we need these decisions made by this date.
Yeah.
Okay. And as soon as that date starts getting pushed, then it turns around. It's like, well, then you need to push your whole project. And they're like, well, how can we make up the schedule? Overtime doesn't work anymore. Yeah. You guys are only going to work so long, and they're not going to work so many weekends. You can't make enough overtime up to make up for a lost schedule when it's so far behind.
Right.
So you just need to keep pushing the realistic part of this thing and put it in writing that you're now pushing your project down the road because I can't have these decisions. And the best person to have in a meeting is the owners. Because they'll say, somebody make a decision, or they'll make a decision, I want to do this. That's if the owners aren't in the meeting, it's tough sometimes. I gotta be careful what I say here.
Yeah. You need that decision maker.
Yeah.
You do. Yeah. Anybody who's going to think about it, get back to you, do whatever, like, no, we need a decision now. And if there's cost ramifications, we put that on the table for whatever their decisions they need to make. And usually the owners are the ones that are paying everybody at that meeting, paying the general contractor, they're the one paying everybody. They can make a decision. They can tell the architect what they want, what they want to do, how to move forward, what to do, as long as it's within codes, which always comes into play as far as the fire codes or fire ratings. But So you have, it's a different power play in a meeting, but you're still trying to push the project. That's the whole point. You got to push the decision making, or the advantageous part of panelizing the exterior of a building isn't going to come into play.
Right.
That's your try.
And to add to that too, like I see it in our business too, in the advertising world. Like people, well, we want to have our campaign started in 6 months. Okay, well, it's very simple.
Yeah.
To do that, we have to have these things in place, and we can't go out and spend the money to tell people how great this product is unless you help us here. And so it's very, very similar in that regard. And didn't want to put you in a tight spot there as your response. So I think you handled it really well for what it's worth.
Well, yeah, you have to analyze who's in the meeting, who's going to make the calls. A lot of times you won't have the lead architect in it. You'll have his assistant in the meeting on the phone, and they'll have to get with one of the principals and get back to us. And okay, let's do that.
Yeah.
And then, so you have to be careful. But in order to have the correct information to prefabricate an exterior finished wall panel, finishes on it, maybe window frames in it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on there. You have to have answers. And that's usually the pitfall.
Yeah.
You can't get decision makers to move forward.
Yeah, and especially being potentially even a year out, that kind of plays with your mind. But
And then you talk about material lead times. That's even worse now. They want to see different mock-ups of different colors. I'm like, you're way past that.
Yeah.
You're way past that point.
Deadline pass.
Yeah, way past that.
Yeah.
it's kind of tough then.
So we have 40 years, and I'm looking at this pretty cool brochure here, the Novinger Mega Wall Panels brochure.
Yep.
And then on the last page, there's projects dating back to 1976, and it looks like up to 2020. A bunch of projects all over the country here. Any that stick out in your mind as like some of the more challenging projects, or the most notable, or the most rewarding, or something you drive by and you tell your family about? Anything that you're really excited about? Any challenging?
I think by the time the jobs are done, none of them are fun anymore. It's a lot of. Well, no, a couple of ones. Even like well, Dan was involved with the Penn State Hampton. That's a good-looking job. That's a good-looking job. Yeah. That was a process. The architectural firm was out of Chicago, Cannon, and they were. This was right pre-COVID, and they had 11 job treaders stuck together there. 2 walls had a huge room. You could get 30 people and all kinds of whiteboards, and he was good at. We would draw up a detail in 3 different colors. He would initial and date it, take a picture of it, send it to Chicago, and say, make us a confirming RFI. Things moved. So that project was probably one of the more, I would say, rewarding, just in the fact that the process you were involved in really had some weight to it, to their decision-making process.
Yeah.
And then when COVID hit, then electronic meetings started, and then they kind of lost their oomph to get up and draw pictures on a whiteboard and do those kind of things. It's a different market now, but Penn State Hampton was the most one that comes to mind. We did over there. Some of the ones I can't remember anymore, but.
Do you remember one of the first ones you worked on?
Well, when I started working here, I was actually working in our panel shop, which is up on Front Street.
Okay.
As an apprenticeship carpenter, and I was working in the panel shop, helping to load trucks and just doing that kind of stuff. So I go back to some of the older manpower I worked with that are gone now, but that makes it kind of interesting to where I came from to where I'm at now. But
Definitely.
Yeah.
could be more hands-on than most. So.
Yeah.
Well, it was nice when we were walking around the shop earlier. You were talking about things. I mean, you can actually hear and see your passion for what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it was really nice to see because, and I know this is audio, so it's kind of hard to explain it, but just the way that you were explaining things and talking about the process of how each panel is made and where it's ultimately going. I mean, there is a complete understanding and knowledge of what the project needs and where it's ultimately going, which honestly I don't see too often in construction. And so here's my question for you after that long-winded rant. Sorry.
We're getting somewhere.
We're getting there. Eventually we'll get there. It's like a river. It just meanders. And now he just lost the question. Thanks, man. Thanks. I got it back. Okay. So do you think that is a part of working in prefabrication or the industry as a whole? Like that intimate knowledge of, okay, this piece is going to go to...
Yeah, I know where you're heading.
You know?
Well, and I went to WVU, and then I bounced around a few places. And then when I started in construction, it wasn't so much the construction, but the blueprint reading. When I came in, there was guys taking blueprint reading classes. I'm like, why? It's all right here. But I've often said to these guys, I still have some brain power left. And then that if you actually gave me a box of popsicle sticks and some glue, I probably could build you every building I've ever looked at.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that the plans come off the table, they rotate in 3D. I can see this whole modeling myself. And when you get to those jobs, every part that we have put together that goes against the next one, I could draw you that building where we got to lay on the floor out there.
Yeah.
So, and I can walk through there now, and I saw a couple of things need to be changed out there, and I brought it to their attention as we were walking around. This isn't right. That needs to be fixed. Pay attention to this. And most of the guys will listen to me because usually I'm right. But I only go out when I make sure I have something that's right. So,
So you're the nightmare for the guys out in the shop.
Walk out there to let go, guy. There you go. But I mean, it's a lot. It's fairly repetitive, but that's part of the thing with the guys out here. It's like if you do anything over and over, like you see how many bricks they got to stick on there.
Yep.
You just got to pay attention to the details of everything we do, because we won't sacrifice quality for quantity.
Right.
Because it's a sure outcome there. But what you see coming out of the shop is correct and right, will fit on a building. And it's done the way the architect wanted it to do to start with. So we don't do it here, it's not going to look right there. So
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
But somehow an innate ability with blueprints, I finally found my niche in the world as I was out doing whatever I was supposed to be doing. So blueprint reading is good. So
That's good. That's good.
yeah,
Yeah, it's pretty impressive out there. We saw the solar panels. Exciting.
that's something new.
The new wave of
It's our Canadians.
panels, I guess.
Our Canadians.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's an interesting process too. I mean, there's a lot of retrofits going on with energy codes. New York City's trying to get all these owners to redo their buildings, roofs, and outside because of the energy loss, a lot of them. So they're actually looking at these panels as far as building insulated exterior panels with the solar outside, so they can hook the outside of the building up to the grid and still be better insulated on that. So it's very infancy stage of being developed, but you got to see it out
Yeah.
there. So,
Yeah. So a little of an investment tip as well, possibly. Hey, coming to you, more things coming to you from the Building PA podcast.
The next segment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, that actually was really cool because, and again, we'll put some photos on the website. You can check it out. But what impressed me the most is the width and thickness of those panels. It couldn't have been more than
like
half inch, maybe max.
Well, but that was even just the back of the panel itself was like a quarter inch.
Yeah.
I mean, the solar panels.
You can tell I'm good at math, right?
Yeah. Technology. Take out shop here.
Yeah. I will be fired in an hour. Let's put it that way.
Find something for you.
Sweep. That's about it. Cool.
So yeah, I was going to ask what the future is, but I guess that is part of the future.
Well, some of your products, it jumps around. And it's so, you do ACM for a while, and then you do brick, and then you do an EPIS panel, and it seems to ebb and flow around. Now, when the big high-rise burned up in London, that was an ACM product that really set that market back a little bit. More of the fire ratings to the outside skins of the plastic kind of like exterior coatings. So more of a focus on the fire ratings, which we've always been big on. Exterior combustibility and smoke developed they have on the outside of the building. But you see brick, you see thin brick, you see insulations on the outside. As long as it's encapsulated, there's a lot of the insulation value is what's going to drive most of these retrofits over buildings, or the new stuff have to have new energy codes that are out to meet, which are pretty stringent. You get more R value on the roof and on the walls, so there's less energy used. So, and better windows, better glass.
Nice.
So the whole thing just fascinates me.
It
I have
does.
to admit. Like, because for so long, working in the industry for about 25 years, you see, it's the same. You go to a job site, there's dirt, there's mud, there's all sorts of different stuff. And then you come here and it's like the same stuff that's going on a job site, but it's relatively clean. It's pretty straightforward.
The controlled environment.
Controlled. It's like, again, I keep scratching my head. Why aren't more people doing that?
Well, you'll see when, like I said, you guys put some pictures out here for people to look at. There's 50,000 square foot of exterior wall that we're laying out there. So that's on an exterior building. It's a 12-story building, and 50,000 square foot of your exterior wall will be made out here and put on trucks and hung on your building.
In Philadelphia.
In Philadelphia. Right from the metal studs out, all your finishes. So that's and if you did that on the site, you'd have to build scaffolding, you'd have framing up there, you'd have sheeting, you'd have stuff blowing all the
Way more
neighborhood.
workers too.
And then on site, the duration would drag out forever. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's wild. It's pretty wild. So, Steve, I want to thank you for joining us today. This has been fantastic. Great chance to talk with you. And thank you for the tour and for the opportunity to meet.
You are welcome. Come back and see us anytime.
Thanks, Steve.
Right.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining the Building PA podcast. To stay up to date, follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook, and visit buildingpapodcast.com to subscribe to upcoming shows. Thanks for listening.